Lucio Urtubia, the bank robber who lived, broke after stealing millions. Lucio Urtubia, a Spanish forger and bank robber, puzzled France for over 20 years. He successfully forged millions of dollars and robbed some of the toughest banks in Spain, France, and even the United States. Yet in the end, he lived a modest life as a construction worker with a limited income. Why did he do it? Where did all the money go? This is the story of an extraordinary man. Born in 1931 in a small Spanish town, Lucio's life took a tragic turn when his father fell seriously ill with cancer. His father, suffering from unbearable pain, asked Lucio to seek financial help from his wealthy uncle Pablo. However, Pablo refused, revealing that his previous promises of support were empty words. This betrayal sowed a deep resentment in Lucio against the rich and powerful. Witnessing his father suffer without proper medical care planted the first seeds of rebellion in his heart. He began to question a system where wealth dictated survival, and this anger slowly grew into a lifelong defiance against the elite. His father's condition worsened, and with no money for treatment, Lucio felt powerless. He even contemplated drastic actions, like robbing a bank, to afford medicine. Though he never followed through, this experience shaped his path, fueling his later decisions to challenge financial institutions in his own unconventional way. As his father's health deteriorated, he eventually begged Lucio to end his suffering. At just 14 years old, Lucio was left devastated. He even considered robbing a local bank to afford his father's medicine, but couldn't bring himself to go through with it. Soon after, his father passed away, leaving a lasting impact on Lucio's worldview. After his father's death, Lucio and his brother moved to a city on the Spanish-French border, where they worked as smugglers. This was his first exposure to an underground world of crime, where he learned to navigate illegal trade networks and the art of deception. However, his smuggling days were cut short when he was conscripted into the Spanish army. Though reluctant, Lucio saw an opportunity within the rigid structure of military life. He carefully maneuvered his way into the food distribution division, where he recognized another profitable venture. With his newfound friends, he began stealing and selling military supplies on the black market. The money they earned was substantial, but Lucio's real thrill came from outsmarting the system. His ability to manipulate the very institution that sought to control him gave him a sense of empowerment that would later fuel his more ambitious exploits. When authorities discovered the thefts, Lucio was on leave. To avoid arrest, he deserted the army and fled to Paris, where his sister helped him settle. He worked diligently in construction, but his independent nature clashed with colleagues who found his dedication excessive. One day a co-worker told him, "You're not a communist. Communists follow orders. You're an anarchist." Intrigued, Lucio delved into anarchist philosophy. He became involved with a radical movement that sought to create a society without government or money, believing both to be the root of inequality. His commitment deepened when he met Francisco El Kiko Sabate, a fugitive anarchist bank robber. El Kiko became Lucio's mentor, teaching him the art of robbing banks, not for personal gain, but to fund their revolutionary cause. Lucio admired El Kiko's fearlessness and strategic thinking. Their bond strengthened as they meticulously planned heists, targeting financial institutions they viewed as oppressors. During this time, Lucio sharpened his skills in deception, disguise, and tactical planning, becoming one of the most elusive criminals in Europe. His methods were meticulous, often leaving authorities baffled. He believed that his actions were not mere crimes, but a war against an unjust system. Lucio's increasing expertise in financial fraud made him a valuable asset to the anarchist movement, and his name began to spread among underground networks as a revolutionary force to be reckoned with. Lucio's first robberies were nerve-wracking, but he eventually adapted. He and El Kiko divided their spoils into 3 parts, supporting the anarchist community, aiding imprisoned comrades' families, and covering operational expenses. However, El Kiko's luck ran out when he attempted to return to Spain and was killed in a shootout with border guards. Devastated, Lucio abandoned bank robberies and focused on activism. Despite leaving robbery behind, Lucio's anarchist group needed funds to spread their message. They initially sought a bank loan for a printing press, but were rejected. The bank's refusal only reinforced Lucio's belief that financial institutions were oppressive entities designed to maintain power in the hands of the elite. Left with no choice, Lucio and a comrade devised a bold plan to take from the very institution that denied them. Armed with a detailed strategy, they successfully executed a bank robbery, making off with enough money to establish their own press. This press became the heart of their revolutionary movement, producing pamphlets, manifestos, and newsletters that spread their ideology across Europe. Through this, Lucio helped recruit new members, build alliances, and strengthen the anarchist community. What started as a desperate measure to secure resources soon transformed into a powerful tool that fueled the resistance against the capitalist system. Soon, Lucio saw a new opportunity: forgery. He proposed forging Spanish IDs to help comrades cross borders. Though initially dismissed as impossible, Lucio found an expert, Laureano Serrata, who taught him the craft. They successfully forged official documents, making travel and financial transactions easier for revolutionaries. As Cuba and the US clashed politically in the 1960s, Lucio saw an opportunity to strike at capitalism. He and his team began forging US dollars, aiming to flood the market and destabilize the American economy. Their counterfeits were of such high quality that even banks couldn't detect them. Lucio's method involved meticulous research on US currency, including security features, ink composition, and paper texture. His team tirelessly experimented with printing techniques, using specialized presses and chemical treatments to ensure authenticity. With their refined forgeries, they strategically infiltrated financial systems, exchanging the fake bills through intermediaries to avoid suspicion. The goal was not personal wealth, but economic sabotage. Lucio believed that by injecting millions of counterfeit dollars into circulation, he could weaken the financial stronghold of capitalism. His efforts gained attention not just from criminal investigators, but also from intelligence agencies concerned about the potential geopolitical impact of his scheme. Through his Cuban contacts, Lucio managed to secure a meeting with Che Guevara in France. Excitedly, he presented his plan, expecting enthusiasm. However, Guevara dismissed the idea, stating that America's economy was too vast to be shaken by forged currency. Lucio, disappointed, abandoned the plan, but remained under close watch by French authorities. With his counterfeiting expertise growing, Lucio set his sights on a formidable target: Citibank, the world's largest financial institution at the time. Unlike traditional bank robberies, this operation relied on forging checks. Lucio recognized that checks were a widely accepted form of financial transaction, making them an ideal tool for large-scale fraud. His team meticulously studied Citibank's check designs, security features, and serial numbering system to create near-perfect replicas. Their strategy was calculated. They distributed these forged checks through a sophisticated network of operatives across multiple countries, ensuring that the fraud remained undetected for as long as possible. By cashing the checks in different locations simultaneously, they overwhelmed banking systems and delayed fraud detection. This operation was unlike anything authorities had seen before, brilliant in execution yet nearly impossible to trace back to Lucio directly. With every successful transaction, he became more confident, leading to the biggest heist of his career. Citibank's tourist checks were widely accepted worldwide, making them the perfect target. Lucio and his team copied serial numbers from legitimate checks, printing thousands of identical fakes. By simultaneously cashing them in different cities, they evaded detection for years. The scheme drained millions from the bank, causing global disruptions. Citibank, desperate to stop the losses, pressured French authorities to take action. Despite suspecting Lucio, police lacked concrete evidence. His network was too disciplined, and he lived a modest life, arousing no suspicion. In 1980, Lucio made a crucial mistake. A contact introduced him to an American buyer, willing to purchase forged checks for 30% of their value. Skeptical, Lucio had the man investigated, but found nothing suspicious. The deal seemed like another routine transaction. but Lucio failed to consider the growing pressure on law enforcement to capture him. Unknown to Lucio, authorities had been tightening their surveillance and were desperate to put an end to his financial deception. He proceeded with the deal, believing he had taken all necessary precautions. The buyer, however, was not just any middleman. He was a carefully placed informant working with the French authorities. This would prove to be the beginning of Lucio's downfall, as the transaction was part of a well-planned sting operation designed to trap him at the perfect moment. At a Paris restaurant, Lucio handed over a bag of counterfeit checks. Moments later, police swarmed the scene. The buyer was an informant, and Lucio was arrested. Though initially imprisoned, his lawyer exploited legal loopholes to secure bail. After his release, Lucio planned to flee. However, authorities tracked him, gathering more evidence. Soon, he was rearrested and faced trial. Citibank demanded severe punishment, seeking $50 million in damages. But Lucio had one last trick up his sleeve. Knowing the bank was still hemorrhaging money from counterfeit checks circulating worldwide, Lucio offered a deal: his freedom in exchange for ceasing all forgery operations. As proof, he would surrender his printing molds and provide intelligence on existing fraudulent networks. Citibank officials, realizing they had few alternatives, agreed. Lucio skillfully negotiated further concessions, ensuring that no additional legal actions would be taken against his associates. In return, he not only handed over the printing molds, but also revealed vulnerabilities in the banking system that had allowed the fraud to flourish. The deal was finalized, and Lucio walked free, having orchestrated one of the most audacious financial negotiations in history. His ability to turn the tables on one of the world's largest banks cemented his status as a legendary figure in the world of financial deception and anarchist defiance. Following his release, Lucio left crime behind, founding a construction company and continuing his activism. He remained a staunch anarchist, living a simple life despite once handling millions. Rather than indulging in luxury, he used his remaining influence to support anti-capitalist movements, offering guidance to young revolutionaries, and participating in various leftist organizations. He was often invited to conferences and discussions on anarchism, where he shared insights on financial fraud, resistance, and the flaws in capitalist structures. Lucio also wrote about his experiences, publishing memoirs that detailed his journey from a smuggler to an international financial outlaw. Despite his past, he was never driven by greed. His actions were rooted in ideology. He lived the rest of his days advocating for economic justice and empowering those who shared his vision. He passed away in 2020 at 91, leaving behind a legacy of defiance against the financial elite and inspiring generations to challenge the system. Lucio Urtubia's story is one of rebellion, principle, and the fine line between crime and revolution. He never sought personal wealth. He fought for a cause. Whether one sees him as a hero or a criminal, his life remains an unforgettable tale of audacity and conviction.